The Town of Los Gatos Planning Commission meeting of June 11th, 2025 is now called to order. I will now call the roll. Commissioners, please state here when your name is called. Commissioner Burnett.
Here.
Commissioner Raspy.
Here.
Vice Chair Birch.
Here.
Commissioner Barnett.
Here.
Commissioner Stump.
Here.
And Commissioner Sorty.
Here.
And I am here as well. Please stand if you are able as Commissioner Sorty leads us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As the Planning Commission conducts the meeting this evening, we encourage active participation by the public. The public can participate in several ways. Prior to a meeting, written comments about agenda items may be submitted to staff. During the meeting, there are two opportunities for members of the public to participate. First, during the verbal communications period, an individual may speak on any topic that is not on the agenda. Second, during the public hearing portion of tonight's meeting, any member of the public may speak about an agenda item. You will be advised of the times when to speak on each of the items. If you wish to address the commission tonight during the verbal communication portion or a public hearing agenda item, please raise your hand on Zoom, or for those here in person, complete a speaker card and give it to a staff member. When you're called to speak, please come up to the podium and speak directly into the microphone, as this meeting is being recorded. We will now begin with the verbal communications portion of the meeting, during which members of the public are invited to address the commission on any issue that is not on the agenda for tonight's meeting. Staff will announce when your 3-minute time limit is up. I have no speaker cards, so I'm assuming that we're all here for the agenda item. Okay. Any hands on Zoom?
There are not.
Okay. Then we will be moving on to the consent calendar. Tonight we have one item on the consent calendar, being the approval of the draft minutes of the May 28th Planning Commission meeting. Before the commission acts on the consent calendar, any member of the commission or the public may request that this item be removed. Are there any such requests? No. Okay. Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar? Commissioner Stump?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Okay. Commissioner Barnett, I think, beat you to that. So second. And any discussion?
Chair, I just want to know for the record, I was not present at the May 28 meeting, and I'll be recusing myself from this vote.
Perfect. Thank you. Anything else? Okay, I call the question. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And so the motion passes 6 with 1 abstention. We will now move on to the public hearings, starting with item number 2. Item number 2 is consider a request for approval to construct a new single-family residence with a reduced rear yard setback, site improvements requiring a grading permit, and removal of large protected trees on a non-conforming vacant property zoned R-120, located at 45 Reservoir Road, APN 529-33-054, architecture and site application S-22-048, categorically exempt pursuant to CEQA guidelines section 15303, new construction. The property owner is Fernaz Agahian. I'm sorry if and the applicant is Gary Kolstadt, architect, and our project planner for this is Mr. Mullen. And we will, I will first, before we have the staff report, can I have a show of hands of commissioners who have visited the property, please? And then are there any disclosures or recusals?
Yes, Chair. Thank you. In order to avoid the appearance of bias, having a friend that lives on Reservoir Road, I will have to recuse myself from this item.
Okay, thank you. Will, are you going to stick around, or are you going to skedaddle? Okay, perfect. Then we will see you in 2 weeks. Are there any disclosures? Yes, Commissioner Sorty.
Yeah, I probably want to mention I wasn't here on the commission for, I I think it was heard once by Planning Commission, then it went on to council and was remanded back. But I have reviewed those hearings, the minutes, and closely watched the video. So I'm familiar with the project and all the actions taken. And I did visit the site on Tuesday and started at Rogers' end of the private road and went all the way to the other end. So I have a pretty good sense of things. So.
Thank you. And Commissioner Stump?
My only clarification would be is that I visited the property in January. I did not do a revisit.
Okay, thank you. I have a disclosure to make that I had an interaction with the applicant after the last Planning Commission meeting, but we didn't talk about the application at all, and I didn't even know who the applicant, who she was at that point. So, but just wanted to disclose that. Okay, so Mr. Mullen, you will be presenting the staff report. Great. So let's hear that, please. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and good evening. Before you this evening is consideration of a request for construction of a new two-story residence with a reduced rear setbacks at 45 Reservoir Road. The project site's located east of Reservoir Road and accessed via a private roadway that bisects the property and serves several lots between Reservoir Road and Rogers Street. On January 8th, the Planning Commission considered the application, including written and verbal public comments, and approved the request. And on January 17th, the decision of the Commission was appealed to the Town Council. The Council considered the appeal on March 4th and granted the appeal, remanding the matter back to the Planning Commission with direction to the applicant to reduce the building footprint in consideration of the least restrictive development area, or LRDA, reduce the volume and massing of the residence, and additionally, a request was made that the Planning Commission be provided with more detailed information regarding the circumstances under which the denial of a requested exception from the town standards would constitute a regulatory taking. In response to the Town Council's direction, the applicant has revised the project to eliminate the exception request to the side setbacks by reducing the width of the residence by 2.5 feet on the right side and from 1 to 3 feet on the left side, reduce the size of the residence by 189 square feet, and reduce the extent of the front porch to pull it away from the private roadway. The applicant also provided an updated letter of justification discussing the changes to the project and addressing each of the requested exceptions. Additionally, a brief discussion on the regulatory takings issue is included in your staff report, and the town attorney is on hand to answer any questions that you may have. In summary of the application, or the revised application, the applicant now proposes a 1,593 square foot residence with an attached tandem garage in a traditional Mediterranean style. The residence includes 1,135 square feet of below-grade square footage and an attached ADU. And as mentioned previously, consistent with state law, the ADU is not the subject of this application. Due to the constraints of the site and the desired architectural program, the project requires the following exceptions. From the town code, the required 25-foot rear setback, driveway access road width, configuration of the 2 off-street parking spaces, and the driveway depth. And from the hillside development standards and guidelines, grading depths for 4 feet of cut, retaining wall heights that should not be taller than 5 feet, buildings should be located within the LRDA, and finally, from the hillside specific plan, the requirement for 4 guest parking spaces. Staff recommends that should the Planning Commission determine that the revised project meets the direction provided by the Town Council and finds merit with the proposed project, the Commission can approve the project subject to the recommended conditions of approval included with your staff report. Staff notes that a desk item was distributed ahead of tonight's meeting, and this concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for staff at this time? Okay, seeing none, I will ask the applicant will now open the public portion of the public hearing on item number 2 and give the applicant an opportunity to address the commission for up to 5 minutes. Perfect. So you can just wait until we're ready and then you'll have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I wanted to first thank everybody that looked at this project and sided with us, and as well as the people that didn't, and the comments that we got were very productive. And as you are aware, we did not receive council approval. The appeal was granted. So we met with Mr. Mullen after the meeting and tried to dissect and distill what went down. And I think that he summed it up very well. And we took that as our direction with this new application. The majority of what we're asking tonight are exceptions. And it's pretty clear, as most of you, or all of you realized at our first hearing, that most of these exceptions are going to happen whether the house was as big as it was before or whether it's 800 square feet. So it's inevitable you're going to have 4, if not 5 of these exceptions for any project that's going to be on this lot. So with that, I'd like to just focus on the ones that are maybe discretionary, if you would accept that term from me. The LRDA is the obvious one, which is going to happen anywhere, but that is the big one. And the big reason for that is that the road takes up all of the LRDA. And I just want to make it clear, crystal clear, that that road is non-negotiable. The fire truck turnaround is non-negotiable. We've tried everything we can to reroute that road. It was brought up at the commission, at council. Can we think about rerouting the road? It's not possible. So what we're asking for is an exception to the rear setback. And as I explained previously, this lot is substandard. It's 50% of what an R120 lot would be. And so if you apply the R110 standards, it's a 20-foot rear setback. What we're asking for is a little bit less, it's more than 25, less than 25, but more than 20. And it's in the rear, and partly is because of the shape of the property has a pinch to it, has a V to it, so it pinches our rear setback. If you go to the third slide for me, please, Sean. This orange slide, the orange portion indicates the area that we're asking for on this rear setback exception. You can see it's very minimal. The next slide, please. This kind of tried to combine all of the exceptions that we're asking for. It has the fire truck turnaround, which is the fill. The retaining wall for that is also there. We're out of the LRDA for the majority of the home. We are doing grading with a cut over 4 feet in the rear just to get the retaining walls and the dirt off of the house so we can have a little walkway that goes around the house. And we also asking for an exception on the tandem garage. We were not asking for that exception last time, but we realized that we could just go ahead and we were asking for exception on an additional parking space. And so now we have the 2 parking spaces, but they are in tandem format. We have moved the house away from the road. Our last slide, John, was like sites. The next one is kind of a more graphic image that you can see how far away we push the house back and the entry and everything in doing that. But so overall, I think that what we've done is we have reduced the massing, we have reduced the size, we've reduced the excavation required for this home. We have taken to heart what the council directed us to do, and we hope that you find these acceptable and supportable. I'm here to answer any questions. I do want to add that we feel very strongly that putting a house on this property is a much safer and fire-resistant thing to do than to leave it vacant. There's trees that are not healthy. They're only going to get worse. We're going to take all the unhealthy trees down. We're going to plant healthy trees with the new guidelines. And so this is a positive for the neighborhood, especially with the fire truck turnaround. So.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kolstad. Does any commissioner have a question for the applicant at this time? Yes, Commissioner Burnett.
Good afternoon, sir. Part of the appellant's reaction to the proposal was in the planning plan that there was this thuja, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it right, which is a juniper type, and the concern was fire danger.
Yes. That has been switched out to a tree that is in the town standards, a native tree. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for asking about that.
Any other Commissioner Sorty?
Yeah, just a couple clarifying questions. I think I heard you say the rear setback is now 20 plus feet. And correct me if I'm wrong. I thought when I was reading the plans prior, it was something around 18 and a half. So did that change the rear setback at all? Because
with my magnifying glass, we are asking for a rear setback of 19 feet 7 inches at the most extreme. The average is about 22 feet.
okay.
Where the required setback in the R120 is 25, but if you would apply the R110 setback standards, which is what we're doing, it'd be 20 feet.
Got it.
One of the reasons why we're asking for that exception is to push the house back as far as we can off of this road that's kind of given to us.
Right. But it hasn't been pushed any further back than it was when the council saw it. Okay.
Correct.
And then I think I heard you say also that the tandem configuration was not an exception before, but now is?
That's correct. We had 1 7/8. Now we have a full 40 feet of depth inside there to get the 2 cars. We were concerned about pushing into the rear setback with that, and when we talked it over with Mr. Mullen, we all decided that this is ask for a little bit more on the setback, and this is below ground, by the way. This is an area that's like in basement, but it's pushing into the setback. But what the exception is that they're not side by side; they're tandem. That's the exception.
Okay.
But
So
we're not. But we have 2 parking spaces.
Right.
That's the
This
only way-
enables you to get 2 complete parking
It's
spaces
the only way we
tandem.
can get the 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And just to clarify, previously it was they were asking for an exception with regards to just having 1 parking spot, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so that was okay, thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you. We'll now take public comment on item number 2. So if you are on Zoom, you can raise your hand, and if you are in person, when I call your name, please come up and speak into the microphone. Is there anyone on Zoom?
No one's hands raised currently.
Okay, thank you. I do have a card for Lee Quintana.
Hi, good night. Hello. I'm glad to be back in Los Gatos. I've been away for a while. I'd like to start by saying, first of all, I'm speaking as an individual resident, not as a member of the Historic Preservation Committee. Secondly, I really believe that the resolution and the staff report did not really reflect the town council's discussion, and I hope that all of you have listened to that tape, because otherwise you probably don't have the full flavor of what they were thinking. Having said that, I'm not going to concentrate on the setbacks or the exceptions, most of them, because this is a bad site and some exceptions need to be made in order to allow development. However, this is an extremely constrained site. The maximum allowable footprint or square feet is 1,600, given all the constraints of the site, figuring out the FAR. That's for a site that doesn't have maximum constraints. This one has everything that would constrain the site, and so it would call for, naturally, a much smaller home, not maximizing the FAR. It's been reduced a little bit, but not, I don't think. There are other things that can be done. Mainly, I want to concentrate on the fact that Larry Cannon, said that this was not compatible, the mass and scale was not compatible with the neighborhood, but to fix it might require not just tweaks, but some changes. And I would like to propose a change that I think would address the concern of it not being set back far enough from the street without necessarily reducing a lot of square footage to the house itself. And that is drastically reduce the size of the outdoor foyer entrance, or even push it into some of that round area around the staircase. And number two, reduce the size of the loggia, or at a minimum, remove the roof from the loggia. That is what gives this house a more massive look. Without that covering, you would have from the street a much smaller profile of the house. Let's see if I had anything else to say. I guess I don't.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Commissioner Stump has a question for you.
So obviously, either you did attend the council meeting or watched the council meeting.
I listened to it. I tried to watch it while I was on my vacation. Unfortunately, I was in one of the few places in the United States where I couldn't get internet.
So my question, you sort of bypassed setbacks. Obviously, the new project or the updated project will comply with side setbacks, but they're still asking for an exception for the rear setback. It sounds like you don't think that asking for compliance to that rear setback would have a beneficial effect on reducing the mass and scale of this property. Is that your conclusion?
You know, I'm of mixed feelings on that. It's such a small deviation that, one, you could say, oh, it's so small, just, grant it. Or you could say, oh, it's so small, you can fix it. So, that's at your discretion. I think given that there are so many problems with this project with respect to asking for exceptions, that we should try to get as many into compliance as is reasonably possible.
Thank you.
That's sort of a non-answer answer.
Commissioner Barnett and then Commissioner Sorty.
Good evening, and we always appreciate your comments, which are thoughtful. Can you provide me with a percentage of additional reduction of the house that would satisfy your concerns about scale and mass?
I just sort of iterated it, well, maybe if we could put, this isn't a very good example, but it is. Basically, for the massing, if you remove the roof from the loggia and you push back the outside entrance, that looks like it's part of the mass of the house. You would reduce the visual mass of this house by quite a bit without having to totally redesign it. I'm sure there would be some repercussions in that, but I'm not an architect, so that's my.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah.
What exactly troubles you about the mass of and the size of the house? Is it it's not compatible with the neighborhood?
It's just what Larry Cannon said. He didn't feel that it was compatible with the neighborhood, and he said the only way that he saw of fixing that was to do, a major redesign. This is proposing something that wouldn't cause that to have to happen, that basically the house would stay the same, but it would be less massive from the driveway, more in line with how the other houses on that private road look from the driveway. And I would comment that the visual that the architect provided interestingly had the car on the middle of the road rather on if one was coming down the road, you would be on the other side of the road and you would be closer to the house. This would move my suggestion would move the house back more, the entrance back more than just 1.5 feet. It would be much more visible.
I see. Thank you for that response.
And if I may, did you get that? Huh? I'm going to sneak this in. I thought it was interesting that in the packet there was this picture of the remainder of previous walls. This was of interest to me, being on the Historic Preservation Committee, because nothing was even discussed about that as to what was the previous building that was there that these walls were attached to.
Are there any other questions? Commissioner Sorty.
Yeah, just one quick question. I think you quoted the max square footage of the site as 1,600 square feet.
That is the maximum allowed countable square footage.
I think, could staff clarify that? Because I saw 1656, and I know it doesn't seem like a big difference, but every square foot seems to count on this project, so I don't...
You're correct, it's around 1656 when adjusted for slope, and the proposal fits within the maximum.
Okay, thank you.
But it's very close to the maximum, a very, very difficult site.
Okay, are there any other questions for the speaker? Okay, thank you.
I was just going to try and show you where I was talking about on
for
the diagram.
For the roof covering?
Yeah.
I think that, do we all understand the locate? I think because we have the plans here, so we
Thank you.
The second floor, yeah.
And I do want to say that I know this architect is a very good one, but it's the project itself that's of concern.
Thank you. Are there any hands raised on Zoom?
There are not, Chair.
Okay. I now invite the applicant back up, and you will have an additional 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. We're not quite sure what Ms. Quintana is referring to in the architect report about this house not fitting the site. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we wouldn't be here if we didn't follow Mr. Cannon's, we didn't pass muster with staff following Mr. Cannon's recommendations. I may be wrong, but in the past, we wouldn't be here until we worked all that out, unless we're asking for exceptions. His main comment was that the house was too close to the street. We have pushed it back, but I also, at the council, showed several examples of driving up Rogers Road and around, even on this Reservoir Road, with walls, houses, fences, garages next door. The garage is right there. This is not out of character. This is a very tight site. Also, this site has been reduced from 10,000 square feet to 4,600 square feet to determine the FAR. So it's a drastic reduction to get to 1650 or whatever it is. And we have made reductions. We are not we are not seeking the max square footage. And it is a significant difference when you look at the percentage. The loggia has been one of the biggest elements of the house from day one. This is their outdoor entertaining. It has a view. It's not very large. It's like a living room. It's an outdoor living room. And I don't believe that the roof of that loggia was cited as a problem for massing from Mr. Cannon. I don't have the report handy, but I'll leave it to you to determine that with or without his advice. We feel that it's a flat roof. It's going to provide shade. A lot of times, shade and shadow creates depth, and it also reduces the overall scale. Again, I just want to thank everybody for considering this. We think we put together the best project you're going to find on this site, and I'm happy to answer any further questions.
Commissioner Rossby.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I want to thank you for going through the process and heeding and listening to council and their recommendations and coming back to us with your visions. I think it shows to us a measure of good faith, so I want to say thank you for your efforts. In your letter of justification, I think you addressed another way of dealing with the massing issue, which is to further push the residents back into the lot. And as you indicated, it creates issues vis-a-vis grading and the retaining wall. Can you briefly discuss what the ramifications would be of pushing the house even further back?
So you're saying the encroaching more into the rear setback than we're already requesting?
Correct.
Yes. It would, in order to do that and to make things work, the house would also have to rise up. As you go back, you also want to lift the house up. And so we're still excavating more material. We are creating maybe a more visible home, so we'd have to look at that very carefully because it's going to rise up above some of those trees. We are skirting the visibility of this. We're under 25% of visibility, but I wouldn't I'd be very careful by lifting this house up. We could probably lift it up a foot, move it back 2 or 3 feet on the angle. It's a very steep lot. I don't know if you're going to get much out of it, but you're really going to start to encroach into the rear yard.
And I thank
We
you for
tried to
that.
find the balance, really, you know.
And I believe I asked you this at the original hearing, but my notes didn't reflect it. Your ceiling heights, internal, can you remind me what those are? Are they 9-foot or 10-foot heights?
What, 9 and 10? They're 10 and 10.
10 and 10.
They're
Okay.
10 and 10.
And in your estimation, is there any way to reduce those ceiling heights?
It'd be very difficult to achieve even the 9-foot ceilings when you have HVAC supplying to the upper floor. So that's a challenge. We don't have a crawl space in this house. It's going to be lower floor is going to be on slab. So all of our HVAC is going to be coming through between the 2 floors. So we're having drop ceilings and soffits. So effectively, we have 9-foot ceilings in many of the spaces already. We'd lower that, and we have less than 9 feet ceilings. And it's just not today's world. It really isn't. So.
Thank you. And again, my final question, Chair, I just want to confirm, we know the world of exceptions you're asking for, but you're not asking for exceptions to FAR, lot coverage,
Nope. Right.
height, any of those?
None of
You're
that.
well within.
We're well within all of those limits. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Commissioner Sorty?
Yeah, it might be staff / applicant. I know I recall from just reviewing some of the hearing testimony, I think a question was raised, or a concern first was raised about safety with respect to all the trees required. I think it was 32. And then there was another comment / question about whether in lieu fees might be an alternative. And I'm wondering whether there was any progress in that direction, because I know there's a lot of issues about safety and concerns that were brought up, and, you know, bringing so many trees to the site and having that be a potential fire source, you know, so.
With the updated CAL FIRE standards that were dropped on us in between our first application and this application, we have adjusted our landscape plan, our tree planting plan, to reduce several of the proposed trees. And so we are counting on doing in lieu for the remainder. And all of the trees chosen are from the native list, the town's list. The reality is every tree has a chance to catch fire and be a problem, but we are trying to, again, strike that balance of locating those trees that do the most bang for the buck as far as screening between the properties and kind of grounding this house with also complying with the regulations.
Great, thank you. One other question, again, on the lines of safety that was brought up. I heard a little bit of discussion about PG&E and undergrounding power lines. And I was curious to know, I heard something in the hearing testimony about how that process was started and stopped somehow. And I just had a question about whether that effort is part of this project, and is a roundabout way of asking whether we were improving safety a little bit by doing the undergrounding, or is the undergrounding a project that's runs the whole length of the private road? Just a little more information on that.
So our first intent was to underground from the pole on the opposite side of the next door neighbor's property all the way to across to 26. It was a substantial underground, substantial cost, hundreds of thousands of dollars, just not feasible. So we pivoted and we proposed to do overhead, just relocating the lines and the poles, because as you know, the one pole is right in the middle of the property. It has to move. So we got approval. PG&E was moving ahead. They were about they did some work out there, and they're about to set the pole, and they said we have to take down 3 trees, one on 47, one on ours, and one on 36. And our adjacent neighbors vehemently opposed losing any trees, so we put the brakes on it. We want to work with everybody. So we've gone back and forth with PG&E and their arborists and everybody, and we have designed a way that we can set one pole to the west property line, which keeps the line intact, so Mary doesn't have to lose any trees. The lines are exactly how they are. If she would like to underground from that pole to our property, she wants to pay for that. That's on the table, but we are not going to pay for that. We're just going to start from our property. We are undergrounding from that pole to our property, and currently the design has a pole that was going to go across the other property. We have actually been negotiating with PG&E to get the whole thing undergrounded. So it starts from our western property line underground all the way to 26, which is across that open field next to the road, next to the property next to us. And probably easier on a map, but we are actually going to do the underground all the way across that as well. So, and to boot, the 2 homes that supply power up our eastern property line, Emily and Kia and Irene and Tom, we are undergrounding those, the current feed that's overhead, that's all underground as well.
So the undergrounding, is that being done at your expense, or is it a PG&E project?
A good portion of it is our expense. The neighbor above us is sharing some of the expense to underground because that currently was overhead. The other neighbor is not taking any share of it at all.
Okay,
So
thank you.
it's a big share on my client already, huge.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you. Thank you for explaining that. I know that it's complicated to be working with all of those parties and PG&E and everything. So thank you for explaining all that. We will now close the public portion of the public hearing on item number 2, and I invite commissioners to ask questions of staff, provide comments, or propose a motion very briefly after I ask and confirm just one question with staff. So this is a de novo hearing, so we are reviewing this entire application in front of us again fully, correct?
That's correct, and with consideration of the direction provided by the council.
Okay, great. However, so we just need to clearly on the record, state all of our findings, even if we are coming to the same conclusion that we did in our first meeting. So just ask everyone to do that, please. And now I invite everyone to discuss questions for staff. Commissioner Stump.
There's a paragraph in the staff report that speaks to regulatory taking. My question there would be, under what circumstances, as we think about this project, would any further denial of a requested exception from the town standards constitute regulatory taking?
Thank you. So as a general rule, a regulation will constitute, or the imposition of a regulation on a property owner will constitute a taking if it, one, does not substantially advance a legitimate government interest, and two, the denial of the requested exceptions leaves the landowners with no viable economic use of the property. In most of the cases that I've seen, find that there's a regulatory taking when the property value has been diminished to zero. And there is one case that's somewhat analogous, which is the case of William Haas versus City and County of San Francisco. And in that case, the plaintiff bought a property intending to build a high-rise development. After the property owner began construction, the city changed the height requirement from 300 to 40 feet and rezoned the property. And the property value was reduced from $2 million to $100,000. And because the regulations were evenly applied to all properties in the neighborhood, and because the property owner could still develop the land, the court did not find that the height restrictions and rezoning constituted a regulatory taking. So it's a very, very high standard to establish that a regulatory taking has occurred.
Thank you.
Commissioner Barnett.
I have a few comments. Beginning with the lot merger in 2015, apparently the town was aware that there would be constraints on this site, very difficult ones. And we are here tonight because of the decision that was made in 2015. I think we have to accept that reality. The lot is 50% smaller than the required area for construction, and with slope and road easement issues, there have to be exceptions, in my opinion. The applicant has made good faith changes, with respect to the size of the building, the setbacks, including the side setbacks now being within the code requirement. The building footprint reduction is, I think, reasonable. The mass and volume maybe was only 5.4%, including the ADU, but I think that's reasonable considering the constraints again. And let me see what else. When I look at the staff report for the January hearing, there's a FAR comparison, and I think that 45 Reservoir Road is very much within the range of homes and substantially less than a number than the other two-story homes. And so I think those are my major comments. I note that the conditions that we're asked to approve include, let me see if I can find it here quickly. Let's see. So there are conditions 102 to 188 in the exhibit, only addressing county fire requirements. So I think that's been, that we're well protected and that the neighbors are well protected given those constraints. Thank you very much.
Vice Chair Birch.
I might just piggyback on some of your comments because I think we're in agreement on many things. We have to look at these applications on a case-by-case basis, and I feel like lately we've been seeing a few more of these, whether it's the lot merger or lot split, that are giving us these non-conforming lots that already come to us basically requiring exceptions just to be able to build on the property. And I feel like when you look down this list of exceptions, while it might seem like a large quantity, when you understand that the grading depths and the retaining walls are for the fire turnaround, that the road covers most of the LRDA, I don't even know how you get 4 guest parking spaces on that road for any of these homes. When you look at the 25-foot setback, based on the amount of safety conversation we had in our first meeting, pushing the house back, I would rather give a bit on the rear setback and put a little bit of safety to the road. So when I start going through each of these, to me, there's actually a very practical reason for each of these. We aren't dealing with some of the exceptions we get asked where it's very excessive of the allowable FAR or height. We aren't getting any of those that we've had to struggle with in the past. So to me, this is a very practical use of this lot. Council did give 2 directions. They wanted a reduction of the building footprint and a reduction in volume of mass, which, when you look at the updated drawings, has been done. I'd like to point out that council didn't give any specific percentages or square foot numbers related to that. That's up for us to decide. And, I feel like, yes, there's measures taken. So I feel like the exceptions that are being asked for are not excessive, are not asking for something that I feel like is going to set a bad precedence or that we would struggle with.
Commissioner Snow?
Yeah, I was the guy at the last meeting that I guess made the comment that this is too big a house for too small a lot. And I think we still face that in some ways. By the way, I don't disagree with the points that have been brought up here. But I'm reminded the specific direction that we received from the town council to reduce the building footprint in consideration of the LRDA, which we know is a major challenge because there's just not much of it, and to reduce the volume and massing of the residents. So where does the project stand now? We've already talked about it. They've reduced, I'd call it livable square footage by 5.4% to bring it in compliance with the side setbacks. The front porch wall has been reduced to pull the house back a little bit from the roadway. In fact, it went from, I think, at one point it was 18 inches, and I think it's now gone back to 3 feet, 6 inches, and I would call that a good start. Because again, I think safety still needs to be an issue here. We also know that whatever gets approved, and something will be approved, back in January, 8 exceptions were requested. If my math is right, and looking back at the staff report, and 8 exceptions are still being requested. Although you didn't really receive any credit for the side setbacks because they were all rolled into one exception. So anyway, those exceptions continue to be required and at some point will be needed. My thinking is that this mass and scale of this house could still be reduced, and how would you do that? By still pulling it away from the roadway. My concern is that I don't know that some of these other homes where we say it's, the neighborhood is built this way. Well, a lot of things got built 20, 30, 40 years ago that if we had a do-over, we'd say, don't do that. So I don't think they set precedent. They certainly can be a comparison for us, but I think the overarching issue needs to be safety. So one way you would reduce the size of the house is you say, let's stick with the rear setback of 25 feet. I don't think that answers the question about how you pull the house back from the roadway. So I'm still of the mind that the house is too big. As it was, they came forward with a 4,007 square foot house. Did I say that right, group? The reduction brings this down to a 3,763 square foot total livable space. So I'm just trying to compare apples to apples here. So it's still a very large house. The scale, the mass has not been reduced very much, and I'm not sure that it's what the council directed. So I will leave it at that. Thank you.
I have a question for staff. Are we allowed to consider the square footage of the ADU in the overall decision making of this?
Pursuant to state law, no.
Okay. So what is the total square footage of the proposed, the countable square footage of the current proposal?
Countable square footage is, doing some quick math, 1593.
Okay.
1593, that doesn't count the below grade square footage.
Okay.
It takes out the garage because the garage, there's a credit that covers that and
Okay.
does not consider the ADU.
Okay. And what is the max allowed on this is the 1656?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Are there any other comments? Yes, Commissioner Aspie.
Thank you, Chair. I went back through our records and I went back through our hearing transcript. And first of all, I was shocked at how much speaking I actually did at the last meeting, so I apologize to everybody for that. But at that time, we did an exhaustive, I thought, review of this project. We went through all the exceptions on a line-by-line basis, largely at Commissioner Birch's thinking, and I thought it was a good way to do it. And I know this is a de novo review, but I just want to state for the record, I thought we did a pretty exhaustive discussion the first time. Now, fast forwarding to tonight, I think my focus has been on really the council direction. Those are two things. That is, first of all, the LRDA. And I think we can all agree the LRDA is, it's never going to be a perfect solution there. It is what it is, given this lot and given the siting of the road. There's going to be an imperfect solution. And I think we've got an imperfect solution in this case. Probably the best, or close to the best, we're ever going to see on a building at this site. So to me, that's largely been addressed. And then the other was reducing the massing. And according to our notes, the building is now at 1,593 square feet, which has been reduced by 240 square feet. The footprint has been reduced by 30 feet. So I think the footprint massing side of it has been reduced per council's direction. Massing can also mean height. And so during my conversation here with applicant, I explored two ways to try to do that. That is, reduce ceiling height or push the building back on the lot. Neither one of those solves the problem. And so I don't know how we can reduce the massing, if we're going to use that word here, anymore. The building, again, 1,593 square feet of countable above grade footage, doesn't seem to me to be an extraordinarily large home, given what we're building in Los Gatos. So in my view, yes, the changes have not been dramatic from council's direction, but I'm not sure how much more we can ask of this applicant and still retain a buildable lot here. So I think that the applicant has addressed the council's recommendations to the best of their abilities, given the constraints on this lot, and I would recommend the approval of this project. One last comment, I'm looking at the schematics on the front loggia as a way of kind of breaking up the facade, and I don't see that it does. The rest of the building is of an equal height, and so setting it, it doesn't seem to protrude that much forward, and so somehow redesigning that, I don't think solves a massing issue. It's more design aesthetics. So I appreciate the comments and the thoughts and the problem solving on that. I just don't think that particular solution seems to work. But Chair, those are my thoughts.
Okay, thank you. Anyone, Commissioner Hardy? Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously just a really challenging lot. As a planner and developer and city plan checker over the years, I've dealt with hillside conditions like this a lot, and it's just really challenging. We know for sure that there's going to be a significant portion of the floor area that's going to be exempt because you have to bench this house into the hill, and you're just going to be caught in a situation where you can keep chipping away at this thing, but you're going to end up with an unlivable house. We can try to make it smaller. They've done their best to make it smaller. Granted, it's not a huge percentage change, but I just don't know what else you do. And again, you almost grab the architect's hand and start designing it yourself, and you create something that's really unlivable for somebody. Also, you have to consider their expense. This plays a little bit into some of the safety concerns that came up, but they have to do the fire turnaround as required by the fire department. That's putting them in a really tough spot because it takes up such a huge portion of the lot. It also, creates a retaining wall in the front that's extraordinary in size, and they're doing that in order to do a fire turnaround. And then further on the subject of safety, so you've got the fire turnaround, you're creating that for the entire neighborhood. There is no fire turnaround now, so that benefits everybody on this street. You've got a new house that's going to be WUI protected, and it's going to be beefed up in terms of code. So, from the safety standpoint, I just struggle with this notion that somehow this is creating a less safe environment. I really think that they're doing a lot of things to kind of improve the safety of the neighborhood. So anyway, I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you. I will add some of my comments, just really pretty much echoing my fellow commissioners that I went back and also, watched the town council meeting and our previous meeting and hearing. And I feel like we did really, go through each of the exceptions that were being asked for and tried to come up with solutions or alternatives that were, realistic and viable to keep this project, this lot developable in some way. So I still think that a number of these exceptions, at least 3, come with the fire truck turnaround, which is non-negotiable, in my opinion, because it is required by county fire and is necessary to improve safety in the area. And so, and I think, as my fellow commissioners have said, with the LRDA being such a small space and this lot having such a unique private road run directly through it, I think that they've done the best that they can with this project. And I also agree that the applicant responded well to the council's direction. And so I am able to make the findings that are found in Exhibit 2, and I am ready to support this project if someone else would like to maybe propose a motion. Yes. Commissioner Burnett.
Yeah, start in, see what needs to be added to it. So with respect to item number 2 on our calendar today concerning 45 Reservoir Road, I move to accept the proposal, the revised proposal, with the reduced rear yard setback, site improvements requiring a grading permit and removal of large protected trees on the non-conforming lot. And I can make all of the findings that are on, Exhibit 2, which is on page 5 of the staff report, including the considerations in paragraph 8, and approve the architectural and site application S22048 with the conditions in Exhibit 3 and the revised development plans in Exhibit 10. And my motion is based on all the things we've discussed tonight, the good faith changes made by the applicant since it was remanded to us, the recognition of the difficulties of the site for all the reasons talked about tonight, and overall the requirement to make this lot buildable in light of the fact that there was this 2015 lot merger, which contemplated that there would have to be exceptions, in my opinion. That's my motion.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Vice Chair Birch?
I'll second.
Thank you. I also just wanted to add one more comment because we did not discuss it, but it did come up, is that I appreciate the effort to do the tandem parking, because that was something that was of a concern to some of the neighbors and we thoroughly discussed last time. So appreciate the change and the reconfiguration of that, because I think that it's important that people aren't parking in this big, beautiful fire truck turnaround, which I know everyone in the neighborhood is going to want to do. But so thank you very much for that. Okay, is there any other discussion before I call the question? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? So it passes 5-1 with Commissioner Stump dissenting. And are there any appeal rights?
Thank you, Chair. There are appeal rights. Anyone that's not satisfied with the decision of the Planning Commission can appeal that decision to the Town Council. Appeal forms are available in the clerk's office and online. There's a fee for filing the appeal, and the appeal must be filed within 10 days.
Okay, thank you very much. So Commissioner Burnett left, right? She's not coming back. She said that. Okay, thank you. In addition to, so now we do have a report from our Community Development Director. So Director Paulson, do you have a report
I just have 2 items. The council met on June 3rd. They had a special meeting for Genuine Automotive, which carried into the regular meeting. Ultimately, that project was approved. And I think they've actually moving very quickly and may have already submitted building permits. So we'll see where that moves. And then the other item was the new fire hazard severity zone maps were introduced.
Okay, thank you. Yes, do you have a question?
Mr. Paulson, did you say the fire severity maps were approved by the council?
There were twofold. One was a general plan amendment, which was an adoption by resolution. So yes, that was automatic. The other is an ordinance. And so that has a second reading that goes next week.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. In addition to their service on the Planning Commission, members of the commission serve on several town committees, including the Conceptual Development Advisory Commission, the General Plan Committee, and the Historic Preservation Committee. Are there any subcommittee reports for tonight? I don't think anyone's met since our last meeting. Okay, thank you. Are there any matters that any commissioner wishes to discuss? Okay, just like to thank staff, commissioners, and the public for your participation this evening. And with that, being there no further business of the commission, this meeting is adjourned.